how do you deal with and navigate the bad or negative comments about you and your lifestyle?
The darkest night in my life, where I kind of planned the way I would end myself. I would not want my pastor to be a woman. Women are so emotional. We didn't get caught or didn't get pregnant, didn't get, excommunicated from the church.
The children of missionaries tend to struggle because of the absence of parents.
And I thought to myself, well, what if we all pull out our kids from public schools? Who's going to shine there? Who's going to bring the light there?
How did you approach discipline?
I don't have to be right. I want to be happy.
Vera, thank you for coming on Spitting Seeds podcast. Excited to hear your story, your thoughts and experiences and wisdom on life. So first, I want to thank you for setting time aside from your busy schedule to sit down and have a conversation with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Been listening to your podcast ever since you started it, and now I have a chance to be here. It's an honor for me.
You're a well-known and influential woman, I think, in Slavic church community, and I think becoming more influential week by week. But for those few people that may have not heard of Vera, can you introduce yourself a little bit, a summarized version of this is who Vera is and this is where she's coming from?
Well, first of all, I don't think about myself that high, but whatever God is giving me, I'm taking all the chances. And, I was born in a Christian family. I'm a first kid out of 4. I have 3 sisters. I was raised by loving parents. They loved us the way they knew how, and I don't have any complaints about that. I always wanted to be a missionary. I was mesmerized. I was reading a lot of books on women missionaries. I had a dream to one day become one, but it was that kind of a dream, how little boys dream of becoming astronauts. Mm-hmm. I knew that would never happen, And the reason for that would be, how devil sometimes tells you, oh, you're not worthy enough. Mm-hmm. You're not special enough. What's there? What do you have? God needs more educated people. God needs people that are more, have better talents. God needs better people than you. So I never thought I was worthy. I never thought I was good. I would bring any good to the kingdom of God. So that's how I grew up. And I remember one summer, a tent ministry came over to our city, and they were doing revival nights, crusades, and I thought their lifestyle and what they did was so cool. I wanted to become one of them. And I came to my mom, and they were inviting because they needed people. And at that time, I was graduating high school, and I still lived in Ukraine. I came to my mom, and I told her, Mom, I want to be one of them. And she looked at me, and praise God for moms who have wisdom. She didn't tell me, no, what do you think? Who do you think you are? Mm-hmm. She just told me, well, how about you graduate high school first? And then actually, how about you just pray and you ask God, what does God want you to do in your life? And that evening I prayed, and I believe I got an answer in my dream.
Mm. And what was the answer?
And the answer was, that night I saw myself standing in the orphanage that was in our city. It was the biggest orphanage with about 300 kids. And I was surrounded by teenage girls. Mm-hmm. And there were many of them. In the morning, I woke up and I was feeling so excited, but yet so scared at the same time. I felt like this was the holy moment that God needs me. It was actually an answer from the Lord. I need you. I have a place for you. And then nothing happened after that. I just had the word.
In that moment, did you know that did you understand that it was from God and that's something that you will do? Or did you wake up and you're like, hey, that was a weird dream and moved on with your life? Or did you hold on to something after that?
I held on to it for the longest time, and that was the answer from the Lord to me. I felt special. I felt that He needs me. I felt that God is not done with me, that He needs me, that there is something that I can do also. And nothing happened. I think in a year or two, we moved to United States, and I didn't have friends as excited about serving God as I was. And I was scared to share my dreams. I was scared to share that I actually I want to be a missionary. I was scared. And there was an opportunity presented to me where I had to, because I had to still go to high school here, where I had an opportunity to go to Israel for 6 months of time for a missions trip. And I was so excited. But that meant that I would have to graduate high school early, 6 months early. And being an immigrant kid, that was extremely difficult for me. But I did it. I graduated early, but in my heart, I knew that I will not go. This is not for me. But I so wanted to go that I kept on taking all the steps that I needed. And when I was calling the travel agency to order my tickets, my parents told me, "You're not going to go." And I was like, why? This is literally the moment of my life. I was created for this. And they were like, "No, you're not going to go," because the conflict got worse between Palestine and Israel. And my parents didn't let me go. And I went into a depression. I didn't get out of the house. First of all, I could not believe my parents could be so harsh with me. I was locked in the house for a month. I didn't have a job. I didn't have to go to school. College already started. And I was very depressed. So I finally found myself a job, and I thought to myself, if they don't let me go on a missions trip, I'm just going to work. I'm going to work full-time, overtime. I'm going to make enough money, and I'm going to buy myself a brand new Lexus out of a dealership. So I was working very hard. I was 18 at that time, or 19, but I still had that desire. I knew I needed to go on a mission trip, but I was also very depressed. And, during those moments when you're very low, you don't hear God, you hear voices. And those voices are not from God. I was in college, full-time in college during the daytime, and I was working night shifts, 5 nights in a week. That was difficult for me. But at night, I began to hear voices. The world will be such a better place if you were not here. Or nobody will ever notice that you're gone. Who needs you here? They don't appreciate you. You're good for nothing. And I heard those voices so clear that I would get scared. And there was that one night, the darkest night in my life, where I kind of planned the way I would end myself. And I had a plan that, nobody's going to notice. It's going to look like an accident. I knew the exact spot. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be driving home from work early in the morning. There's no cars still. I lived in California at that time. And this is how it's going to end. And that one night, my sister kept on calling me. She's like, "I want to see you. I want to talk to you. What's going on with you?" I was like, "Nothing. I'm fine." But she was so persistent. She knew where I worked. She came over and she kept on knocking all doors and windows, and I had to open. And she just came, and she didn't know anything about it. But she just began to speak life into my life. She began to tell me that, she needs me, and God needs me, and church needs me, and people around need me. And that, my life has a purpose. And that changed it all. And that from that moment, little by little, I started coming out of that depression. And she was dragging me everywhere with her. She would sign me up for all the youth camps that there were, and it was during the winter time. And there was this winter camp and Alex Shevchenko was as a guest speaker there. And 23 years ago, I just started listening to his tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a fire preacher back then. And he was speaking on the topics that I was interested in. And I went. And that was the time of my rededication to the Lord. I told him, God, I am nobody. I'm nothing. I have nothing. I don't know how to do anything, but I have life. And if you need this life, I give it to you. You can do whatever you want with me. You can send me wherever you want. I don't belong to myself. Just take it. I came home from the trip and I called them. I called their ministry. I don't know why I called them. Mm-hmm. I told them I made this decision. I want to go on a mission trip. I heard that you guys are going. And he was like, actually, we're not. We're not taking people anymore. We're not going back to Russia anymore. And I was very disappointed. And the devil, he's so quick. Like he jumps on every opportunity. He's like whispering in my ear, see, they don't need you. But he said, but I have a friend. And that friend was Alex Fedorchuk. And he said, that guy, he's taking people to mission trips, so maybe you can call him. And I did.
Mm-hmm. So we'll dive into that first. Thank you for sharing such a vulnerable story. And we'll get into that and talk about agape and marriage and parenting and children. But for somebody that's maybe going through such a tough spiritual, emotional season similar that you were going through, what kind of advice, a word of encouragement would you have for them?
To be surrounded by people of faith who will speak life into you, who will pray for you, not to isolate yourself. I know it's so easy to drift into isolation when you're going through hard times, and that's what devil wants us to do, because when we're isolated, he can beat us up. He can do anything that he wants. And to also not to believe lies, because all of those things that I believed, they were lies, and I knew they were lies, but I believed into them. And I also wanted to tell you that if you were born on this earth, your life has a purpose. God has a plan for you. He had a plan for you even before you were born. And he loved you even before you were born. And then he was excited for you to be born. He accepted you into his family. And your life has a meaning. And it has a purpose. And God has a plan for you. So just hold on to those promises of God and be around people that will be praying for you and will be dragging you out of your
Thank you.
dark place.
Thank you. Yeah, you caught us up, on your summarized life story up to Alex, and we'll talk about Alex and marriage and your experiences. But jumping ahead a little bit, I wanted to start off with Agape Ministry. So you saw a dream, you can call a vision at night of orphanage. You and Alex got married in your very young family life. How did you guys come? How did it happen? Because usually, you get married, you want to start building your family. For guys, finance, some sort of foundation. How did you guys come to the decision where, hey, we're a young family, we have our whole future ahead of us, and what we should do is, you guys got married in America, right? And then get up and move back to Ukraine for, 10 years of time, 12 years. What was the beginning conversations and decision-making like at those beginning steps?
Well, actually, Alex also has a story that leads to that. Agape started in 2004. That's when we moved to Ukraine. A few years after we got married. But in 1994, 10 years before that, Alex graduated high school, and he really wanted to go for a seasonal job to Russia to make some money, because he really wanted to buy a pair of jeans. They were so cool back then, and he really wanted to have one. And as he was standing on a train station, he was debating, because he had a chance to go to Bible school in Ukraine or to go to Russia and make money. And his dad told him, son, go to Bible school. You will have many more pairs of jeans in your life. And he went to Bible school, and he comes from a very poor family. He loves to share the story how he got his first leather shoes, and they were same color, different shape,
different sizes.
One was a little too small, one was a little too big. So this is how he came to Bible school. And they went into the city. The students had money to buy ice cream or a pastry, but he had absolutely no money. And he was standing there, and it was a time of, perestroika, and Soviet Union just collapsed. It was a time of poverty in Ukraine. And there was a lot of beggar kids, street kids, gypsy kids in the streets at that time. And those kids were begging for money. And he had nothing to give them. And he said, at that time, God gave me like a vision, and everything that Agape is now, 20 years later, this year. He saw that, everything. He saw buildings, he saw orphans, and he had a word. He received a word. The time will come, you will help orphans. And he said, I looked at my shoes, and I said, God, I don't even have a pair of shoes, normal pair of shoes. I have no money to buy myself some ice cream. And you're telling me I'm going to be helping orphans? But he held on to that word, and he only shared it with closest people, so people knew. So our first date, as I like to call it, was in the orphanage. We both came to Ukraine. It was my first missionary trip, and Alex was leading it. I came from California. He was coming from here. And we came to the orphanage because one American guy came from Washington State, and he said, I serve kids in orphanage, so take me there. And we did. We took him there. And I think it was the time when Alex just started to be interested in me. And he came up to me, I remember. I was in Ukraine for like 2 weeks, and he was asking me, what do you think about serving orphans? And I told him about my dream. And he didn't tell me anything about his word. So that's how it started. So a few weeks later, he was proposing to me, and he specifically told me, like, I love you. I want you to be my wife, but I'm going to be a missionary all of my life. I don't see myself living in the United States. I don't see myself having a comfortable life. I will probably never gonna have a fancy house or an expensive car, or will never go to like fancy vacations. But I want to be a missionary, and I will go back to Ukraine. If you don't see yourself as a part of that lifestyle, that we have to break up. We can't do that. Because I'll get over like the breakup, but I cannot stop being a missionary. So he didn't know that I was praying for a husband like that.
That's beautiful. And one heck of a proposal, one heck of a stipulation. So when you guys got married, the conversation of orphanage and Ukraine, that's already was talked about before you guys even got married, so you guys were both on board with that.
Actually, I never knew what he wanted to do, because he was involved in Good Samaritan ministries, and they were doing evangelizing, church planting. But I was happy to do anything. I was happy to support him in anything that he does, in anything that he wants to do, because he shared his dream with me. And he was open. He said, I don't know where God sees me. I think this is what we should do. But God, he kind of moved things around, and we started working for this guy that came to Ukraine and took us to the orphanage. And he had a big orphan ministry, but he worked in Russia, and he wanted to start working in Ukraine. So we got together and we started helping him. And that's kind of how our orphan ministry started. We were working for the guy, and we learned a lot from him. When the time came for us to move to Ukraine, we didn't move to Ukraine. We didn't know how to support ourselves, And my husband had an opportunity to go to Texas and to open one of the Fine Designs offices there. And we took that opportunity. We talked to our family, and we packed all of our stuff, and we left there. But our ultimate goal was to start a business, to start making money, and to go to Ukraine. So we would have, a business that would support us. And as we're driving to Texas, we loaded our stuff in a school bus they gave us. And there was this guy, he needed to go to Texas for free. So he agreed to drive the bus for us. And we were driving, we already had a child. She was, I think, under a year. And we're driving in a minivan. And we have a stopover in Sacramento at Alex Shevchenko's house. And he's like, okay, guys, so what's up with you? Tell me. And we're telling him that we're going to Texas, but in reality, we're going to Ukraine. And before that, we had a prophecy and we don't abuse prophecies, but we do believe in prophecies because we didn't know what to do. We wanted to go to Ukraine, but no money. So we decided to do business. And we had a prophecy that Jonah is going to Tarshish instead of Nineveh. And there will be a storm. And we did not know how to explain, what to do with that prophecy. Like our eyes were closed. Now it seems so clear. So Alex Shevchenko tells us, you guys, if you're going to go to Texas now, there's no way you're going to go to Ukraine. You're going to get caught up in business and family. You're going to get a house, then you're going to need to pay it off. And we did put an offer on the house and it got accepted. If you want to go to Ukraine, go now. We're like, okay, what to do? So Alex is asking me, so what do we do? But the good thing is that we were young. I was 21. I was like, what to do? Let's go to Ukraine, whatever. If that's the best thing, let's go to Ukraine. So as we're driving to see my parents from Sacramento to Santa Barbara, which is like 6 hours, our decision has changed. We're not going to Texas anymore. And we're asking God for a sign. We're like, God, give us a sign. We need a sign. And Alex, out of a blue, just says, if it's not your will that we go to Texas, but we go to Ukraine, let the wheels on the bus blow up. And this guy calls us literally in like half an hour, and he's upset. He's like, what kind of bus did you give me? Like 2 of the wheels are gone. What do I do? And we're like, yeah, that's the sign for us. So I stayed with my parents, and Alex had to go back to Texas and get all of our stuff back. And he still started that office. And a few months later, we went to Ukraine in May of 2004.
One adventurous journey.
Yeah.
And in Ukraine, you guys were there for 12 years, especially at the beginning days. You guys are young, excited, probably, big vision for what God's going to do. But when you got there, what were some difficulties and challenges that maybe you didn't expect that you had to go through and deal with?
We are young. We're excited. God told us we're going. We have no money. Alex has vision. I never have vision. Like I never know what he's up to, what he's doing. I just have to trust the Lord that it's God that's telling him what to do, and trust Alex. So we come there and we have a child, and we're pregnant with a second one. And we're so excited. We think people will support us. Like, yeah, you guys came to work with orphans. How nice. Let's do this. But for, I think, next 6 months, I was watching people watching us fail. And people enjoyed the show. All the influential people that were in our lives in Ukraine, they told us, you will not succeed. Do you have a team? No, you don't have a team. Well, yeah, Alex, me, and Anna, 1 year old. Do you have money? No, we don't have money. But we will have, because God has the money, Okay, they would tell us, guys, forget it. Just go home, start your life. Do something good for your family. You're not going to survive here like that. And I remember at the end of first 6 months, we were at this small, very conservative church meeting. It was a prayer meeting, Sunday night. And I think Alex just got so frustrated he prayed out loud in the microphone because he was preaching, and he prayed and he said, God, you gave me this word. You sent me here. Nothing is working out. I will stay here until I die or you do something. And after that prayer, youth came up to him and they said, we want to help you. Take us to the orphanage. And that's how we started.
And before that prayer, what was the difficult part? What was hard to figure out and make happen?
Nobody took orphans seriously. Like orphans are the poor kids. They need shoes, they need clothes, they need maybe better beds, they need food. Nobody took them as, eternal living souls. Nobody cared about their salvation. And that's what bothered us, because they are growing up. And the statistics are very sad. They will end up in prisons. The girls will go to and become prostitutes. And this is the society that your Christian kids will be growing in, So the world will be even more dangerous when these orphans graduate orphanage, because they don't know how to live. And all of their lives, they've been told, nothing good will ever come out of you. The prison is crying for you. There is a place for you in the prison. So they believed that. So they would have no hope. But our goal was to come to the orphanage, to the government-run orphanage. We never had any private orphanages, and bring the word of God. And I think God did a miracle, because our lessons, we wrote a program, 9-year program. Our lessons were included in the school schedule in all of the orphanages that we worked with.
What do people, not even in that specific time season, but in general, that you see the misconception or misunderstanding the general public has about orphan children?
Well, like I said, people think they need help. Oh, they need somebody to give them something. But in James 1:27, it says that pure and undefiled religion before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows, not in their poverty, but in their suffering, in their afflictions. And that's what we did, because they have so much hurt in their souls. And now we talk about trauma a lot. But back then we didn't. So they have a lot of trauma, and they need healing, and they need God. And one more thing, every orphan child has a Father God, but they have no idea about it. Mm-hmm. So our goal was to introduce the child to the Father. And when that would happen, when the orphan would become a Christian, give their lives to God, we would never call them orphans anymore, because they're not orphans anymore. Mm-hmm. We would call them orphans in the past, or ex-orphans, but never orphans, because that spirit needs to go.
Mm-hmm. You said they have a lot of trauma that they are dealing with, the orphan children, and I'm assuming a lot of the trauma is related to their family, to their parents not being there for them.
A lot of people think that being an orphan means that your parents died. And I think that would be even a better case, mm-hmm. because most of the orphans, they have parents, but their parents neglected them. Their parents are addicted to alcohol or drugs or in jail. And that's how kids become orphans. And they carry so much hurt inside of them, because sometimes the mom lives next to the orphanage, but she never comes to visit. Or she would say, oh, I'll visit you next week, and never come. And knowing that you have a mother, but she does not love you. She doesn't need you. She rejected you. And that was her decision. That hurts. We had she's an adult now, but she was a little girl when she ended up in the orphanage. And those kids are being taken away from families that are affected by sin so much that the parents cannot think straight, because no mom would ever give a child away. So the mom lived next to an orphanage, and she would come like once a year, and then tell the kids, I will come again. And the kids wanted the mom because they love the mom. No matter how bad the parents are, children love them. They think the best of them. They will cover up for them because that's their only family, you know. So she would draw little hands of her and her little siblings, and she would keep them with hopes that one day mom will come and she will show them that to her, just to show her how they were growing. And then when she found out that the mom didn't care, that just left so much pain and so much trauma in her life. And she had to go through healing.
How do you guys serve them to go through this trauma? What's like their biggest need? You see the Agape Ministries and all the people that are part of Agape, that are filling this need and helping them. What's their biggest core need, and what helps them to go through this and with strength and go through on the other side and grow out of it?
Well, first of all, they need to know that God is their Father. But when they were hurt so much by their earthly father, they usually don't want anything to do with God. Like, I was not careful enough, because we didn't know how to work with orphans, to tell them, God is your Father, He loves you. And the girl would go, what? Do you know what my dad did to me? And God is also a dad? There's no way. I want a father like that. So you kind of have to bring the idea that God is a good father, that He loves you, He wants the best for you. And the second thing is forgiveness. You have to forgive your parents, not because it was okay what they did to you. It was bad what they did to you, but you have to forgive them, and you have to honor them for being parents, for giving life to you. And that's when the miracle happens. And also, we would have because there are a lot of people who specialize in trauma and stuff like that. And we would have those like nights where we would invite the Holy Spirit, and kids would go through like their path of forgiveness. And with Holy Spirit, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a lot of those hard stories, tough stories. What are your favorite stories when you reflect back on all of the Agape Ministry, all of your guys' sacrifice? Stories that have a happy ending, have a positive ending. What are your favorite ones that you go to, like, oh, this was worth it, and because of these children?
You know, my husband always says that if you give them a gun, they will go and shoot. Mm-hmm. If you give them a Bible, they will go and preach. So our goal was always to send our graduates to a Bible school. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest miracle is when I look at them, and they're adults now. Some are just 10 years younger than me, and they are serving in Africa. They're serving in India. They're serving in Kyrgyzstan, in little villages in Ukraine that nobody wants to go to serve. When they are creating healthy families, when their kids are growing up in family. Because the tendency is, if a mom grew up in an orphanage, she will take the kid there. The kid will end up in an orphanage. It's a cycle. And when I see the cycle is broken, praise God, the biggest miracle happens.
Living in Ukraine and going everything that you guys went through as a family, sacrificing for ministry, for these children, how did it change your perspective on life, kind of, Vera, before Agape and serving in Ukraine? And how has your perspective on life, your worldview, shifted and changed after your experience?
I never took it as a sacrifice. I always thought it was the biggest privilege, because God could have chosen anybody, but He chose us. So we always taught our kids that it's a privilege for us to serve God, to serve orphans. And I truly felt that. When I came back to United States, I was completely changed, because life was just so different here. And it's a good life. People live a good life here. But what caught my eye right away, how self-centered we are. I mean, think about it. We say, I need my coffee. Like, we don't say, I need coffee. Yeah, we do say that. But people say, I need my coffee. Where's my car? Like, I need to see my doctor. It's always me, myself, I. And I was surprised that, how self-centered we are here. And I also got very scared, just thinking that someday I might get used to a comfort life and that I will get used to people suffering. When you see so much pain in the world, you're like, oh, you get used to it. Like, everybody suffers. Mm-hmm. So I never wanted to get used to it. I always wanted to have compassion for the people, to have heart for people. And it moves me every time, every single story that, people share or orphans share what they had to go through. I cry all the time. Like, I didn't get used to that. But I am completely different because I know that my life does not belong to me. Jesus is the Lord of my life. I do what he wants me to do. And that is the only reason why I actually sometimes speak in front of women, out of obedience to him. Because if he wants me to do it, I'll do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not comfortable sharing. I'm not comfortable doing anything. But I want to do it for the Lord because he is the Lord of my life. My life does not belong to me, and that's a safe place. I'm not responsible for what's going to happen to me. He is, because he's the Lord. He takes care of us. So I guess I learned how to trust the Lord in everything and not trying to understand. Because you know how in the Bible it says, trust the Lord with all of your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Mm-hmm. It's easy to trust when you understand. Yeah. But you trust and you don't understand, that's difficult. But I don't have to understand. So just learning how to trust the Lord, I think.
What advice would you have if somebody, the 21-year-old Vera used to be, and they're considering, and they're at the fork in the road of, do I pursue career and finances and building my life here in America, or maybe they have an opportunity or tugging at their heart of considering a long-term missionary trip to go serve somewhere and maybe live a different life than we're used to here in America. What advice do you have for them?
Check your heart. Check your motives. If it's the Lord who's calling you, go. You will not regret if you go and something does not work out and you come back. But you will regret not going. I would bless everybody who wants to go. And people often worry about finances. God will provide. You have to trust the Lord. Go. God will provide. I get very excited when I hear that people are going on mission trip, long term, staying for a few years. It seems like a sacrifice, but it's an honor. It's such an honor to be there. And I think missionary lifestyle, it's so contagious. It's like a disease. Once you try it, you cannot just come back and live a normal life.
Mm-hmm. So that's advice for missionaries are having a hard time making that decision. So the goal is to talk about Agape, and you shared a lot, and thank you for sharing that. 2 more areas of life that we want to hear your thoughts on is marriage and parenting, motherhood. So I want to touch a little bit on marriage, and you brought up Alex. Mm-hmm. So you talked about his proposal for you, and then how would you describe, from that proposal day, now you guys are how many years into your marriage? 22 years. How has it been so far from his proposal and hey, we want to be a missionary family, and to now, how has your experience been?
Oh, it was amazing. Perfect. I wish I could say that, but it was good. I mean, life life is amazing. And I think marriage is such an amazing gift that God is giving us. There will be no marriage. We will not be married in heaven. Mm-hmm. So we just have to enjoy it here on earth and make it enjoyable. And it's our job. And I loved being by my husband's side and supporting him. I did not understand anything that he was doing because he would receive a vision. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I didn't get it until I saw that it was done. But I just had to blindly support him, and knowing that the Lord is giving him the vision, the Lord is speaking to him, and also raising our kids in such environment that, we get to serve the Lord, and we loved it. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no regrets.
You speak on the topic of marriage a lot through social media, women's conferences and stuff. What makes you so passionate and zealous about the topic of marriage?
Like I said, this is the best gift that we were given. Like the best relationship here on earth is marriage, the relationship between husband and wife. And we often say that we're married until death does us part, mm-hmm. right? And some people cannot wait for that moment to die. Mm-hmm. Because maybe the marriage is not, so great. But I also believe that we have a power, we have authority to make our marriage great. When God was talking to Adam in the Garden of Eden, he said, I am giving you this garden. You need to cultivate the garden. You need to work in the garden. And the garden was beautiful, but Adam needed to work in there. So I feel like our marriage can be our Eden, our paradise, but we have to work on it. And I get excited because it's possible. Nothing will ever happen on its own if I will not strive to make my marriage to be a better wife, which, I often say I am not a wife I always wanted to be, but I have to become better. Not trying to change my husband, but changing myself. And it's possible. I see how everything changes in a family. And I'm excited to share that. And I'm excited to speak to women that every woman has this authority given to her by God to make her marriage a Garden of Eden, a place where, you can rest and you can thrive and your marriage can be very enjoyable. And why it's important? Because this is the environment our kids are growing up in, And if we didn't see something in our parents, then I don't want to bring it into my marriage. I want to make my marriage a better place, first of all, for my husband, for myself, and for my kids. And it's a lot of work. The weeds are there. There's a lot of weeds.
Yeah, always. But what if, to use the illustration of garden and Adam and Eve, what if Eve is trying to work on it, but Adam doesn't want to work on the garden? What advice do you have for that Eve? What can she do?
I always say you do your 100%, because women often say, what if I put in my 50% and he does not put his 50%? You put in your 100%. You do your job. You do the best you can. And we have Holy Spirit. We have God, and God is for marriage, and he will always bless our decision, and he will always stand, behind our work, and God never blesses the lazy people. So you be the wife that you need to be. Don't worry about the husband. The husband, God will take care of the husband. God will always find a way to knock on his heart.
How do you and Alex cultivate your guys' garden? And in some very practical ways, because we understand with ministry, with work, with 6 children, the schedule that you guys are dealing with. But on a practical level, what do you guys do maybe on a recurring basis that helps you guys connect and cultivate this relationship?
Well, first of all, it's very important to have an older couple in your life that went through all the things that you're going through now, and they can teach you, they can speak into you. They will say, this shall pass. This is just a season. It's very important to understand that life has seasons. When we had little kids, life was so difficult. I was always tired. I don't think I've ever slept through the night in the first 10 years because we always had a new baby. And it was difficult. And we messed up so many times. And I always would get offended that, oh, my husband doesn't want to spend time with me because he's not initiating anything. Mm-hmm. But he didn't know, because I think for guys, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like women want some quality time. And if he's not initiating it, oh, then he doesn't care about me. He doesn't like me anymore. I had those thoughts and I would get offended. Like he would tell me, oh, why didn't you tell me that you want to go out for coffee? Or I'm like, what do you mean I didn't tell you? You needed to think about it yourself, mm-hmm. you know? It's because it's not special if I tell you. But then I kind of grew out of it and I thought to myself, if I want flowers, I'll go and buy myself flowers. Mm-hmm. You know, if I want to, even though Alex buys me flowers all the time. But, and if I want to go on a date with him, I'll invite him on a date. Mm-hmm. I'll look into his schedule. I'll do it. First 10 years, we had little kids. Obviously, we didn't get out as much. Like we didn't even have finances to go on like dates, but we agreed that every night he comes home, we put kids to sleep, and then we just sit in the kitchen for like 30 minutes and have some tea and just have a heart-to-heart conversation, just to ask how your day went. And he would ask me, and just to talk about stuff. And that drew us closer to each other, because we need to be intentional. And sometimes it takes little things, you know? And then when our kids are a little older now, it's much easier for us to go on a 2-3 days getaway. Mm-hmm. We can't do a week because it's a lot of time, but 2-3 days, it's enough for us. And sometimes our kids would tell us, Mom and Dad, you have to go somewhere. You haven't been anywhere in a month. You have to, Mom, go on a date. Mom, ask Dad on a date. Mm-hmm. And they get excited. I was surprised. Every time we would go on a date, they would be so happy. Like, yes, Mom and Dad are going on the date. Because then they also feel safe. Oh, nothing's going to happen in our family, you know. Nothing's going to happen with parents.
They're doing good.
Yeah, they're doing good.
And look, right now the kids are older, but looking back, I think in my age, couples and families with few small children, very young children, what kind of advice would you have for those families, what they can do to build up and cultivate their marriage? I think especially I think guys are more, busy with work, mm-hmm. but for a typical mom with a few young children, constantly overwhelmed, lack of sleep, behind schedule and everything, what kind of word of advice and encouragement would you have for the young mom that feels over her head and overwhelmed?
When I was in that season, I never thought it would pass. I never thought it would end. I was just so tired. And people told me, oh, kids are given to you for a short period of time, but your husband is forever. So you have to pay more attention to your husband. And I thought, oh, well, blah, 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 mm-hmm. everybody says that. But of course, I'm a mom, But before I became a mom, I was a wife. And now I see that happening. Our kids don't need us that much anymore. Mm-hmm. Now I look at Alex and I'm like, I'm so thankful I have you. And I'm so thankful we have a good relationship, because kids are gone and we only have each other. So it's important when we're taking care of the kids and being busy and cooking and cleaning and laundry and all of that. It's so important to pay attention to your husband too. And it's coming from a woman who knows what it's like mm-hmm. to have a busy schedule, because he's your companion. Your kids are not your companion. Your husband is. So just being more intentional. It doesn't take much. He doesn't have to take you out on a fancy date. Just spending time with each other. I think that helps a lot. Just talking to each other. Just sharing your hearts with each other.
Because I think in those seasons, and again, we're hanging out with similar families, similar problems, and it seems like often the conversation goes to, especially maybe on the mom side, is mm-hmm. I'm already overwhelmed. I don't have time for this. So the word is find time, it's
time.
important enough.
Make time. Yes, it's important. And I was that kind of a mom who would not trust my kids just to anybody. It was difficult for me, and we didn't have a family in Ukraine, so I didn't have anybody helping me. It was extremely difficult for me to find a babysitter that I liked and that I was willing to trust my kids to. And I came to the point where I could not do it anymore, physically and emotionally. And we had to ask a girl, she was my cousin, and she was willing to come a few days in a weekend to help me, even to stay with kids. And she would tell me, go with Alex, you guys go talk. Because eventually the kids will also notice that something's wrong with parents. Yeah.
Yes, when the relationship starts drifting a little bit, bit more bickery, a little bit more short-handed.
Yes, exactly.
When you mentioned Alex and he has visions, and I've heard you call him a few times before, like ideas guy, he always something new, something different, and yet you always very enthusiastically support him. Do you ever get concerned, like, hey, well, I'm thinking, let's say, for people that are in that situation where, well, my husband wants to do all these things, and wife's like, well, that's a horrible idea, that's a bad idea. Where does that balance come in, where a wife shares her opinion of, hey, honey, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we shouldn't move to Ukraine or somewhere else. Like, at what point, I guess, how do you navigate this area of, I need to be a supportive wife, but also I need to share my opinion with him?
I think we need to be open and share our opinions, but it's not only what we say, it's how we say it. Mm-hmm. That also matters. And in the beginning of our marriage, I made a big mistake and I learned from it. Alex was given an opportunity to invest some money into a land. And I was thinking, we don't even have that much money. It was not a big amount. It was like a few $1,000s, but we didn't have it. But he's like, well, I can think something, Mm-hmm. And I said, no. Now I think, why would I even say that? How would I was so brave to say no. And other people did invest, and the profit was big. Mm-hmm. And I saw what I did was not good. And I told myself, I will never do that again. If he does something and it fails, we both fail. But if he does something and he succeeds, we both succeed. Mm-hmm. And my husband is very enthusiastic. I just love watching him. He's almost 50, You would think that he would just come home from work and lay on the couch and watch TV. No, he has all these ideas, and I love it about him. I have to support him. Sometimes I know that this idea is not a very good idea, but I love to see how he's excited. He's so happy about it. I just love watching him being like that. So that's why I support him. And also, if it works out, it's good for all of us. If it doesn't work out, whatever, we all lose. So one day we lose, one day we win.
And you guys have been married for a good while, plenty of experiences and growing together, and now six children, yeah?
Yeah.
And even preparing for this, talk to some of your children, and even again, judging by them, judging by them, and how involved they are in ministry and how well raised they are. Ina is in charge of nursery at church and scheduling, and she's like, my always go-to is like, whenever I can't find anybody, I can always rely on Fedorchuk girls. They'll be there to serve and to help out. As I understand, you guys were in Ukraine, coming here for the birth, but living in Ukraine, running this thriving and growing ministry in Ukraine and all these orphans. And 20 years later, it seems like you guys have great relationships with your children, but also well-raised children. How did you manage to balance both?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliments. I think it's only by the grace of God. We have good children. It was my biggest fear that they might be, they might not have enough attention from us, or something might happen to our relationship. But it's only by the grace of God. And there is, I didn't do anything special because I didn't know how to. The only thing, and Alex is a great dad because he's like this grace dad. He loves them so much. Like, he would never discipline them, and maybe too much, He was always on the grace side, like grace upon grace upon grace, no consequences for anything, because that's how he grew up. He's the youngest in his family, and he was so loved. And he always says, "Oh, we need to love our kids." And I'm the oldest, so I'm like a little bit the opposite. I'm like, no, we have to discipline them too. So I think it's a combination. I'm in the family, and I'm open. I'm always the bad guy. If I tell my kids, wait until I tell your dad, they're like, please tell our dad. Yes, Mom, please stop lecturing and tell dad. So our kids are our biggest partners in ministry. Our sponsors can leave us. The people who work in Agape can leave us, but our kids are there. And we made sure that they always feel that way, that they are a part. It's not Papa's and Mama's ministry. It's not that, oh, you kids sit here and wait, we're going to go serve. No, you're on board. You're not left out. You're doing this. And when Papa is going somewhere and we have to share Papa with orphans, we're doing this. This is our sacrifice to the Lord, and I think maybe there were times when they didn't understand that. And there were moments when they were bitter about some stuff. But I think it's always good to talk it out, to have that kind of open conversation when they can tell you anything, not being afraid that, oh, you will judge them, you will not understand them, or you will punish them for saying something. But that they would be able to tell you straight in the face, hey, I was hurting at that moment. And we would ask for forgiveness. We would, from like every very, very young age, when they were babies, we would ask them to forgive us for whatever would happen, little things. And I think it's important to just be, authentic with your kids. Be real. You're not a super mom. You're not a super dad. You can't tell the kids because I said so. Just be a human. We're all humans. Yeah. We all make mistakes. And family is a place where we make a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of forgiveness.
What helped you to, on a practical level, of setting time for them, spending time with them while running a huge ministry that I'm assuming helped you build this relationship with them starting from their young years?
Well, it was definitely harder in the beginning of a ministry because, like in every beginning, you have to do everything. You don't have a team. So we would always take them with us, and that's how we would spend time. We never left them anywhere. We would go to orphanage far away, take them with us. They would play with the kids and they thought, this is the kind of life we have. Everybody has that kind of life.
This is normal.
This is normal. So they didn't know that they had a different lifestyle. And we don't have like a specifically set time, frame to spend with them. But I just have to be intentional, especially with my girls now that they're teenagers and young adults, to be friends with them, and that means sometimes we're doing everything their way. And I have to be that that mom that, just goes and eats a hot dog instead of like a salad, because this is cool. This is what cool people do, And I'm not trying to be a cool mom, because I was trying to be a cool mom, but they told me that they didn't like it. So
fit it with them.
She's 40 acting like 16. That's weird. And then they told me, Mom, we just need a good friend, a good older friend. So you can be that one. So yeah, we sometimes we have a privilege of sometimes flying standby on Delta. So we would go with them somewhere, they wanted to go to Paris, and we will go there, or to some other places. And I would just visit all the libraries and all the bookshops and whatever they want to, just being there for them. And I think Alex is more intentional with the boys, especially our older boy. He's 19, so he shares a lot with his dad. And sometimes I would ask him about something. How is that thing going on for you? He's like, I already told the dad. So I'm fine.
That's awesome. Where now the kids are growing up and getting older into their teenage years. And again, it's more like a selfish question, but we always discuss in our age group friend, when they're younger, and you mentioned that you were the strict dad, the bad cop, the disciplinary in the family. How did you approach discipline on a very, I guess, as specific as you can get? Like, hey, at 3 years old, at 5 years old, 8 years old, age-appropriate discipline that worked for you, and understand, each child is different, but maybe philosophy or worldview that you use for as far when it comes to strictness and discipline with children.
Before I became a mom, I knew everything about kids. I knew how to raise the kids. I thought I would be the best mom ever. I would never raise my voice. I would never spank them. I would never get disappointed. But life happens, and all of those things that you never wanted to happen, they happen too. And I don't have like a specific strategy. I think it's good to read books, but it's somebody else's experience as well. And you're going to have your own. I understand that you need to have both the law and the grace, the discipline and the grace. And we're still learning, but I am not the mom that I used to be with my oldest. Now that I have 2 younger boys, I am not the same mom.
How are you different?
I think I was too strict with my girls, and I wanted them to be the best, like in school. I wanted to give them the best. You kind of, when you were growing up and not having something, you want to give that to your kids, but maybe that's not the thing that they need at the moment, I was trying to give them a lot of music lessons and just anything that was available for them. And I'm still disciplining the younger ones, but it's just my heart is different. I'm a more mature mom now, I think.
Right now your kids are older, in school, and your kids are currently in public school. Right now, it seems like it becomes more and more popular and to be concerned about public school. And if there's an opportunity to send kids to private, preferably private Christian schools, how did you come to the decision to send kids to public school in a day where many parents are concerned about public school?
Well, I believe that no matter what decision parents make for their kids, it's best for their kids, and they have their best intentions. And our kids went to public school, then they went to private school for a little bit because Alex really wanted them to go to Christian private school. And they went, and then we also did Christian homeschool program. And my son, Alex, I think he was like 6 or 7 at that time. And he would get really frustrated with me. He would be like, Mom, you locked me in to that Christian school. And now I'm doing this Christian homeschool. I don't even have nobody to tell about Jesus. I want to tell people about Jesus, but where do I do that? If you're keeping me, so safe. And I thought to myself, well, what if we all pull out our kids from public schools? Who's going to shine there? Who's going to bring the light there? So I do believe that our kids have to be safe, but I also do believe that our kids are missionaries in their schools. And I was sending them off to school today, and I told them, boys, please show them the Father. With your good deeds, with being kind to the teacher, just show them the Father, because our good deeds are meant to show people the Father. God. And they believe in that. They come home, and Alex, almost at every prayer meeting, he has a testimony. Something happened at school. He prayed for somebody, or he led somebody to Christ. He's a very jumpy, energetic boy. Sometimes he does not good things in school, but at the same time, he prays for people. He prays for healing. He prays for salvation. He does all of that. And now the most he's concerned about is that one of his friends considers themselves a transgender. And that's 5th grade. It's a girl. And he doesn't know how to preach to her. He's constantly asking me, Mama, what else do I tell her? I've been preaching to her for 2 years. And nothing is changing. So I'm just telling him to continue preach, to continue be kind to her. So I believe that's such a great place for our kids to grow in faith. And plus, when they are in public school, I'm always on the lookout. I am always very involved. What did you guys learn? What kind of books they read? Where when they were in private school, I got relaxed. Like, okay, that's a Christian school. Nobody's going to teach them anything bad. So I didn't really care about what was going on there, which was probably my fault. But now I'm always asking them. And before they went to school, I had to teach them that they are boys. They cannot become girls. Even if they want to, they cannot become women. They cannot change anything. So they already know. Before we send them to school, they already know the fundamentals. They know the truth. They know that they are the children of God, and they live like that. And I just love watching my boys growing up like that.
That's awesome, to shine a light where, in a place where it seems like it's getting darker and darker each year. And it's awesome to hear, because even Alex, Wednesday prayers, that's his weekly, when there's time to share needs in prayer requests, that's his constant need for different kind of friends that he shared the gospel with, and he's praying for them, for their salvation, and
yes, he's bringing Bibles to school. Last year, I think he had a crush on a girl. So, and she was not Christian. And I said, the Bible tells us that your future wife needs to be a Christian. So we went on Amazon and we bought the cutest pink Bible with sparkles all over. And he wrapped it and he gave it to her. And then she gave it back to him because her mom didn't let. And he was like, nope, not going to take it back. Put it in your locker and read it in school.
Oh, wow.
And eventually he would tell me, oh, she's on page 22 or
That's
she's
cool.
on page 45.
That's cool. Even hearing like Alex stories, and again, looking at the fruits of all the children, and like I mentioned, them being involved in ministry and serving. But usually there's like a stereotype that the children of missionaries tend to struggle because of the absence of parents, because parents are busy doing ministry. You shared a little bit on it, but what do you think helped you guys to avoid that? Where, because your children could have used an excuse like, well, my parents were too worried about other children than us, and yet for some reason you guys are close. You know, their children are great. What do you think helped you and Alex to parent in a way and have the children that you guys have?
Again, I'm going to repeat myself. Only by God's grace. When I had little kids, I read a book, God's Generals. And I was so upset that most of the kids of those generals turned out to be either atheists or walked away from faith. And I was very worried about our kids. But then I thought to myself, are the truck drivers' kids, do they see their dad that often? Because he's working so much, you know, he's gone a lot of the times. How about actors? I think popular people, they are so little involved with their kids, but nobody blames them for that, you know, because they're doing something. How about other people, like TV people or just doctors? I had my last baby at 11 p.m. My doctor, my OBGYN was a woman. I didn't want to call her because I knew that she was putting kids to sleep, but she had to come. And I was like, I'm so sorry. My time came like this late at night. And she was like, oh, it's okay. I was just putting my kids to sleep. So the woman needs to drop everything and go to the hospital because some other woman that she will probably never know from now on is giving birth to a baby. So people make sacrifices. People even sacrifice their families for a job. Well, we're not sacrificing our family for ministry. We're in ministry together. And when we're gone, our kids know that we're not gone because we want to be gone. They know that this is their sacrifice for the Lord. And sacrifice is something that hurts a little bit. So mama will come, papa will come, we'll go somewhere, we'll, make up for the time. But you just have to do it. And you have to get rid of that stereotype that, oh, your kids are left out because, you're a missionary or you're a pastor. So your kids struggle. Every child struggles with the same things, like all the kids struggle with different things, whether you're a pastor or you're a truck driver. Our kids live in the world. Teenagers struggle with similar things. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor or a missionary. Your kids will go through life and there will be challenges, but God is there for your kids,
And you having 6 children and great children, but I'm sure, it wasn't always perfect and, they were perfect at every season of their life. When a kid's growing up and they're going through a rebellious season of their growing up, how in those situations, you have a guy, you have guys, you have girls, how did you manage through those maybe tough seasons, down seasons in their upbringing? Do you feel like you helped them navigate through it for them to come out on the other side stronger and wiser and a better son and a better daughter?
I failed so many times and I made so many mistakes and I had to ask for forgiveness. And we would sometimes do a night with one of the kids where we would just open our hearts to each other. And we would invite the Holy Spirit and I would tell them, to my daughter or to my son, I want to ask for forgiveness for any hurt that I've ever caused you. I might have been unintentional or intentional. I am a human. I want to ask for forgiveness. I want you to forgive me. And those moments are so special because first of all, you never know what they're going to tell you. And sometimes I have to laugh and I have to make sure they don't know that I'm laughing because it's just something small. But if you talk to my kids, of course, they will tell you something that there are some memories that I wish were not there. But when you look at those moments and you don't have pain, it means that you were healed. So I think for me, it's just important to have a heart-to-heart conversation. And because, this culture, it implies on them so much that, oh, you're hurt, you're traumatized by this or that, what your parents did. And I had to sit them down and tell them, we're a good family. No matter what, we are a good family. We're the only family that you have. We're going through stuff. We're going through things. We're going through seasons. We're growing. And when your kids are becoming a teenager, oh man, I had to grow so much as a mom. First of all, I needed to learn how to be quiet, how to just shut up and not say anything. And the teenagers' rooms are sometimes messy. I literally felt like putting the yellow caution tape and those signs, school zone. You can't drive too fast. You can't say whatever you want, even though you want to. You have to be careful. I had to learn it. It doesn't come with, it doesn't come naturally. I had to learn to be quiet. I had to learn to myself, Vera, you're an adult in this situation. be quiet. Just don't say anything. And of course, pray. Pray for them. Always pray for them. Your prayer does miracles.
And you touched more on when your mistakes as a parent of them growing up and apologizing to your children when you feel like you made a mistake, acted in a wrong way. What are some practical conversations that you would have with the kids when they're going through rebellious time and they're pushing boundaries and causing trouble? At what point and how did you draw the line and saying, hey, you need to stop doing this and this? What was your approach of letting them know that they need to stop what they're doing because that's a wrong way to behave?
You need to protect them, first of all, from themselves. And they don't understand that, but they also understand that. It's like they love and hate you at the same time. They're pushing you away just to see how far you're willing to go for them. Mm-hmm. And I had to be strong, I had to be strict, but also very loving. And this is how God is. Sometimes he disciplines us, but he's also loving, right? Mm-hmm. He loves us. And we would have our fights, our battles. Mm-hmm. I would have to choose my battles. Not every battle you have to fight. But then at the end of the day, I would still come in and hug them and just hold them, because it's funny how they are big physically, but sometimes they're little kids inside. And I would just hug them and sit with them and cry with them or laugh at their jokes. Mm-hmm. Just being that loving person who is also sometimes strict.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, your thoughts, from Agape to marriage to parenting. And we have a few questions from listeners. First one, besides God, who influences you?
My mom is a great example of a wife and a mom. And so she's my best example, I think, in life. Mm-hmm. My husband influences me. He believes in me. He prophesies into my life. I think he sees me much better than I am. And he always blesses me. He's always there for me. And I also have 3 sisters. They always have a say in my life. And I have some friends who are a little older than me. I chose them to be my friends. I wanted them to be my friends. And they have authority to lovingly rebuke me, to correct me, to say whatever they think, because I know they love me. So I think it's important to have those people in your life. And I'm open to criticism, to good, healthy criticism from them.
What's one thing that people may be surprised to know about Vera?
I was hoping you would skip that question. That maybe she's not as nice as she seems.
But I think everybody knows Vera is very nice and serving and sacrificial.
Okay, let them think that.
How do you deal with and navigate the bad or negative comments about you and your lifestyle?
I would say if it's not a sin, if it's not something sinful, and people, comment about that or point my attention to that, I try to ignore. And if I get overwhelmed or too emotional, there's a place at the cross. Mm-hmm. I take all the comments and I literally just lay it out before God. And he takes it all. Like, he helps me. We are humans. We are exposed to negative comments. People will always comment. I remember we were moving back to Ukraine and I heard so many comments like, oh, they're going there because they don't want to work here. Mm-hmm. They're going there because what are they going to do there? What do they know? Do they not know how to be missionaries? I heard so many comments and compliments like that. You know what? You don't have to accept every negative comment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't accept it, it's not yours. Like the people get to keep it.
Mm-hmm. What was a controversial belief growing up for you, but now has become a norm in Slavic churches?
Is it more like in a negative way, or
maybe something that changed? How I understood it is you were growing up and maybe that it was maybe used to be negative. That's something that the view that you would have, that you would get rebuked for, but now it's accepted in the church.
And I don't think it's a good one. But when we were growing up, the relationship between a young guy and a girl would be very strict. Now, and that's how I grew up. And that's how I'm raising my kids. Now, the boundaries are so not clear. You know, a lot of people live together before marriage and, like it slips through fingers, you know, like, oh, nothing happened, you know, like we didn't get caught or didn't get pregnant, didn't get, you know, excommunicated from the church. So it's becoming like a norm. But what I really, I grew up with being very conservative, the way we dressed. I didn't like it. But I thought we're doing this, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and I'm doing this for Jesus, so it's not hard for me. And also, but I also really love that we grew up with a fear of the Lord, with reverence for the Lord. Whereas now, we're talking so much about loving the Lord, and God is loving. He loves you so much, and we love the Lord, and it's the most important thing to love the Lord. We're losing the fear of God. And it's kind of sad for me to witness how my generation is losing the fear of the Lord, because we think that, the Bible doesn't say we shouldn't do this or that. So you just use your judgment, you know, and sometimes we don't use our judgment to the best. So I want to go back to the fear of the Lord.
What are another question from a listener, what are your thoughts on women teaching, preaching, being a pastor in the church?
I would not want my pastor to be a woman. Just because women are so emotional. They are so hormonal. You never know what to expect from a woman. You know, she can be high, she can be low. You just never know what to expect. Even my younger kids would, if they want to ask me something, they would ask me, Mom, are you in a good mood? Is everything okay with you? And then they ask, because they know, you know, mom's mood can change. I do believe in the Titus woman. And it's the woman, it's where he teaches the older women to teach the younger women. I do believe in that. And I think there is power in that. When older women are teaching younger women how to love their husbands, how to love their kids, just like the Bible says, how to take care of their homes so that God would even be glorified in our homes, you know, just stuff like that, practical stuff like that. There are some good women preachers. I listen to them. But honestly, I do love men preachers more.
Final 2 questions. What do you think women often misunderstand about men?
Ooh. Well, first of all, I think women try to change men. Because, for example, your mom was raising you up for like 20-something years, but she didn't do a good job, so I'm going to do a better job. Well, that's never working, so don't even try. I think that women think that men know what women want without us telling them. You kind of have to guess what I want. And if you guessed, I don't want it anymore.
One of the very helpful phrases that helped Ina and I in our marriage is, if you don't say it to me, you can't hold it against me. So if you didn't tell me something, you can't just imagine in your head. And that goes both ways, because there would be things that she would be doing and I would get annoyed, but I wouldn't say yeah. But it was slowly starts building up, and often very little things. So one of the phrases is, if you don't say it to me, you cannot hold it against me.
That's a good one.
And the other side, what do you think men often misunderstand about women?
Oh,
a lot, everything.
A lot. It's like that joke. Do you want a 5-lane highway or to understand a woman?
Oh yeah. There's like a big
What's
book.
easier? What's easier? I don't know. You would have to ask a man, I think. I don't know.
That'll be for our next podcast. Anything else you want to leave us with? Your thoughts for whoever has listened this far into the conversation?
The brave ones that stayed. I just want to bless all of the listeners. I just want to tell them that God loves them. He has a purpose for their life. And you don't have to go overseas to be a missionary. You can be a missionary at your work here, your school. We need those missionaries. And but if God is calling you to go. Dedicate your life to the Lord wherever you are. Life is a beautiful thing. Marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is what you make it. Kids are given to us for a season. They will always be our kids, but the relationship is different. So cultivate your marriage. Relationship, for me, is the most important thing. I don't have to be right. I want to be happy, and I want to keep that relationship going with my kids, with church members, with my husband, with whoever is there in my life. And just ask the Lord what He wants you to do and do it.
Vera, thank you for your time.
Thank you.